Magandang gabi sa ating lahat. Welcome to our 365 Daily Devotion. At ngayong gabi ay ating patuloy na pag-aaralan ng ating Daily Devotion. Ngayon ang paksa natin ay magmumula sa Exodus chapter 3 verse 11. Sabi dito And Moses said unto God, Who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? Kaya sinabi ni Moises, Diyos, sino pa po ba ako para kausapin si Paraon at ilabas ang mga Israelita mula sa Ehipto? So ang katuruan natin dito, una, obedience is our task. So when God calls us to act, our role is simply to obey, not to have all the answers. Moses felt unworthy and ill-equipped for the mission God gave him. And in many ways, his feelings were valid, but God didn't call Moses because of his abilities. He called him because of his plan and purpose. God does not need us to be perfect or entirely capable. He requires our obedience. So obedience means following God's instructions even when we don't have all the details. It involves stepping into the unknown, trusting that God knows the way forward. So like Moses, we may feel inadequate, but obedience is not based on our qualifications. It's based on our faith in God, who equips those He calls. Our task is to respond with obedience, trusting that God will supply what is needed for the journey. Second is, the result is God's task. So many times we hesitate to obey because we are concerned about the outcome. So Moses questioned his suitability for the task and worried about whether he could successfully lead Israel out of Egypt. But God reminded Moses that he would be with him and that the outcome of the mission was in his hands, not Moses' hands. So when we obey God, we must leave the results to him. We are called to take steps of faith and obedience, trusting that God will handle the rest. Worrying about the results can paralyze us, but remembering that God is in control frees us to act God's purpose. So God's purpose and His power ensure that the results. So He is faithful to bring His plans to completion. All we need to do is to obey the outcome of His responsibility. Lastly is to experience God's promise. So as we obey, we position ourselves to experience God's promises firsthand. For Moses, obedience opened the door to witness God's miraculous deliverance, protection, and provision. So if Moses had allowed this fear to stop him from obeying, he would have missed out on seeing God's faithfulness in action. So when we obey God, we open ourselves into experience His promises in real and powerful ways. Obedience allows us to witness God's faithfulness in the midst of challenges, His strength, our weaknesses, and His provision in our needs. So it transforms our relationship with Him and builds our faith by trusting and obeying. So we experience the fullness of His promises.